Hi everyone. This is part 2 of my homeschooling series that I'm putting together for you. The first part discussed daily routines and household management during homeschooling and during virtual schooling. We discussed chore times, meal times, notebook organization to keep track of your paperwork, how to get your daily routine going so that it was maintainable and nobody was going crazy during all of that. So if you need that sort of advice, find the other video, and that's where that information is at. The first thing I would like to say is that if you're new to homeschooling, please go to hslda.org. It is a legal organization that has all of the mandates and requirements for every state, and you need to make sure that you are homeschooling legally and that you are meeting your state's requirements for hours and subjects and whether or not you need testing and all of that sort of thing. Sometimes there's paperwork that needs to be filed through the local school district. Please make sure that you're going there. I'm not a lawyer. I cannot give you legal advice, but that is my advice, to go find somebody who has that information, and hslda.org will have that all put together for you. Okay, so today I'm going to be talking kind of quickly because you can see behind me I have a lot of textbooks to cover. Today's video is going to be about the core subjects that my state requires, and they tend to be pretty universal. So we'll go over different subjects, some book series that I use. You can find all sorts of packages that you can just buy that has the teacher resource guide, the student notebooks, the student textbooks. It'll all be put together for you in a packet. You can go and pay for those, and it's just right there. You don't have to do a lot of research or anything about it. I don't use those. It'll look like I do because I have a lot of books that are from the same authors. I prefer not to go that route because they tend to be kind of expensive. I would rather find the books that I like and I think are good textbooks without paying a whole lot of money. The majority of the books that I have actually come from Amazon secondhand. They are textbooks that are either just a little out of date. They're not first editions. Let me phrase it that way. They still have really great information. They're just not the most recent version. A lot of public schools require the most recent version, or they invest in the most recent edition of their textbooks. And so a lot of times you can find old textbooks online. Amazon is really great for that. There's a train coming through. I'm sorry. Now I've lost my train of thought. So seek out those used textbooks. Homeschoolers will sell them. Schools will put them online. They are really great and usable sources, but they're a lot cheaper than just buying a brand new textbook and teacher edition. So that's my suggestion for that. So today we're going to start off. I'm going to introduce you to two books. If you are going to be homeschooling just for a single year, I have a series for you to check out. It goes from kindergarten through 6th grade. If you need high school, we'll have to find some other resource for you. This book series, What Your Child Needs to Know, written by E.D. Hirsch, is very good for a single year homeschool. You can carry it on through the next grade, but if you're just doing a single year and you need to know what subjects to teach, this book series is really great. It has everything laid out for you, and this is where you know where you're going to get your information from. So you can take the subjects in here, write them all out. They give you the standard information, the subjects, the topics for each subject. This is a great place to start, and then you can fill in with other books, with other workbooks, and that sort of thing. But this is a great place to start, especially if you plan on only homeschooling for a single year. Now, if you are getting into this and you want to homeschool for the long term, I'm going to recommend The Well-Trained Mind, A Guide to Classical Education by Jessie Wise and Susan Weisbauer. I hope I said her last name right. This is a fantastic book. It breaks down kindergarten all the way up through high school, and every 4 grades is considered a single rotation. So the subjects will begin, for example, 1st grade will start with ancient history. All of the lessons are based off that timeline. So science will be what the ancients would have studied. It's beginning math, it's beginning writing, beginning grammar. Then grade 4, you are in modern times. You have already studied some chemistry, some physics, all that sort of thing. The rotation starts again for 5th through 8th grade. You go farther in depth in those subjects, and the lessons are a little more filled out. The subject matter is more filled out. Then by the time you get to high school, they have a really great foundation in all of those subjects, and you can really, really get in there and study some good biology, some history that's more than just telling a story. It will be discussing the events all throughout history and how they have affected all the countries and the path that the world itself has taken. So it begins with very easy subjects, very simply laid out as the foundation. Then the middle years, you're going to add a little bit more to that. And then the final 4 years of high school, you will just be studying it very in depth because they already have the information. I would recommend this book even if you are planning on homeschooling for a single year, because it discusses more things than just subject matter. If you're a virtual schooler, your subjects are going to be laid out for you, but this book is still really great. It discusses socialization, fine arts, college preparation, all of that sort of thing for your child. It is just a fantastic resource no matter how long you plan on homeschooling. So I would recommend checking out those 2 books, and that will be a great place to get you started for what you're going to teach your child. I'm just going to go ahead and jump straight into the core subjects today. We're going to start with math. And a lot of people seem to be intimidated about teaching math, but think back on it. You've already had this information. It's already somewhere in your brain. You've made it through school. You've already been taught it. You just kind of might need a little bit of a reminder. And your adult mentality and the way that you look at things is going to help you be able to understand math maybe even a little bit better than you did when you were younger, so that you can present that material to your child in a way that they can understand. The great thing about homeschooling, I don't know about virtual schooling because I'm sure that you need to do things the way that your child's teacher has said. But the great thing about homeschooling is that you can introduce the material in the manner that you are familiar with. And then if you need to branch out to another method of teaching, you can do that. So for example, a lot of the parents were upset about the new Common Core math. You can teach your child the way that you are familiar with. But if you need to move to the new Common Core math as a way of teaching, you can do that. That information is still there, but you're not limited to only learning a specific type of math. You can present it in a way that you can teach it. So my recommendations for math, there are a lot of programs out there. I am not familiar with all of the different programs. I'm familiar with 2. If you have any recommendations about other programs that you really like, please put them in the comments for other people to be able to investigate. My first suggestion is going to be Khan Academy. It's free. It will track your child's time, your child's progress. It will put them at the level that they need to be. It has a lot of other subjects for high school that you can investigate, but go to Khan Academy. The video lessons are up. They do a really great job of explaining things, and your child has to go through them until they meet a standard of completion. If you want another option that is not online, it's a paper version. It is put up, I believe it's a British program. It's put up by the Center for Innovation in Mathematics Teaching, and it is called the Mathematics Enhancement Program, or MEP Math. I have a website link for you. If you are interested in that, it comes with a teacher resource page that you can print out so that it gives instructions on how to teach your child math. And they have from first grade all the way up through high school. So you can print out the children's pages and the teacher's pages right there laid out for you. The next thing I want to discuss is reading. Reading for us is based on the history timeline where we're at. So if a child is doing ancient history, they're going to be studying fables and myths from that particular country. We will do a little poetry reading as they get older. There's read aloud time. I have authors' pages printed out for the older children. Let me show you that. They answer some basic questions about the author, and this is a place for them to put the picture. It is just a very basic example to show that, yes, we did study that. And I have found it invaluable for doing literature studies. So reading is not difficult to teach. You just basically go through it just read the subject and talk about it. If your child does not know how to read, pick up the book Teach Your Child to Read in 100 Easy Lessons. It is fantastic. It is completely scripted. I don't use the scripting. We just work through what the child is supposed to repeat back to me. If you are looking for other types of literature, you can pick up old textbooks. Those are fantastic. Go to the library, get Myths and Fables. I'll show you a couple of books here as an example. So here I have, this is Shakespeare Stories for Young Readers, written by Mrs. Nesbit. It's fantastic. I did not read through this before we sat down to do it. The children really enjoyed it. I just wrote out the characters on a whiteboard, and I enjoyed figuring out the story as much as they did. It was fantastic. You can find things like this. This is called From Sea to Shining Sea. It's American folk tales. It's just a big anthology. You can find all kinds of anthologies like that for whatever country you're studying. Every country has their own mythology, and it's always fascinating to read and compare similarities to that. If you happen to get your hands on a set of books like this, this is really fantastic. I found these at a flea market. These are reading books that you would see in any classroom. You can see I picked them up for $1 a piece. Yard sales, flea markets, all that kind of thing. These are based out by level. If you can find these, that's great. If you can't, use what you can find. It's just telling me my battery is working on dying. I apologize for that. Okay. So next we have, like I said, you can pick up any sort of textbook. I picked this textbook up off of Amazon. This is Scott Forsman, Reading Street. It's a really great book. It didn't cost me but $2. The children just work through the book. If you want something a little more structured. Reading Strands. I haven't gone through this book yet. This is new for us this year. But it is put together by the National Writing Institute, and I'm really excited to try this. So the next subject is going to be grammar. Okay, I'm really fond of the books that Susan Wise, Bauer, and Jessie Wise have put together. They have done a really great series here called First Language Lessons. This is done by levels, level 1 and 2. This typically covers first and second grade because it is very, very simple. It's a really great way to introduce your child to grammar with very little writing requirements to go with it. Now, when they get older, this looks like my nephew. First Language Lessons, level 3. If you're not familiar with how to teach grammar, even with the older children, you can pick up this book and you can teach them grammar. The older children will be able to do a lesson a day. Some of the younger ones, you have to divide the lessons in half based on their understanding. Level 3 does not necessarily indicate grade 3. This is only the third book in their series, and it's a higher level than the first two. It's a little more difficult, but it is not unattainable. You're going to be introduced to some very basic grammatical concepts. This is a fantastic book. The follow-up to it, this looks like my friend's little girl. Level 4, I recommend getting the workbook that goes with this. I didn't get the workbooks for any of the other books except for this one, and I just print it off whenever we need a page. The children don't write in the notebooks. I just print them on our printer so that I have that same workbook to use for the other children. Level 3 and Level 4, if you're not familiar with how to teach grammar, this is the way to go. There are teacher's guides. There are no workbooks that you can get for them. I would recommend it very highly. This is only the teacher's book. For most of these, I only got the teacher's book. Here's the workbook. It's pretty simple. You can print them out if you want. What is the next one here? After that, they have this really fantastic series, Grammar for the Well-Trained Mind. The fantastic thing about this, it comes with a student workbook for the children to use. Comes with an answer key. I went ahead and bought both of these when I first started this series because I was not as familiar with it. And then it comes with a teacher's instruction guide. The great thing about this is that this exact same instruction guide is used for their years 1 through 4. And you'll notice it says years 1 through 4. That's not first grade through fourth grade. I started this book with my kids when we were in 5th grade. These are just levels. These are just levels. It is not a grade requirement. This one teacher's book will be used for 4 different levels of student books. So it's really fantastic. You sit down, you have different age groups at the table. You can use one book for the teacher's guide, and everybody will be on the same subject, just at different levels. I highly recommend it. So, next thing, moving on to writing. I have a book series here that I really recommend, and that is Writing Strands. Once again, these have levels. It's written by the National Writing Institute. They have levels. It is not grades. Okay, it's not grades. Their level 6 book is meant for age 17. Okay, there's not a 17-year-old in 6th grade. This is just a level, not a grade. I recommend them. Start at level 1. Most of the time they say to take a week to do each lesson. Start at level 1 if you're with your older kids. Make it 1 lesson a day. They will get through it very quickly and progress through these levels until they reach the point where they are used to writing and they are at a level that challenges them. I recommend starting at level 1 simply to build the habit of being able to sit down and write. The very beginning levels are kind of boring. They're kind of slow for the older kids. For example, you're going to start out writing about a pencil. Put the pencil on the table and you write about it. My kids find that so boring. So I printed out Shakespearean insults and allowed them to insult their pencil using Shakespearean insults. Full sentences. They thought it was a hoot. We got through it in the single day and moved on to the next lesson. So that's my recommendation, Writing Strands. You can find those online. If you want to get into poetry, I'm going to recommend Poetry Writing Handbook. I had so much fun with this book. The kids and I had so much fun with this book. There's so many more versions of writing poetry that I didn't even know existed or how to do it, even if I had heard about it. This is a really great book that gives examples and step-by-step of how to write really good poetry. And we've had some fantastic times with this. We'll be continuing in this book again this year, and I'm so excited about that. Okay, next one. If your child, going back to writing, if your child is in kindergarten, start out doing copy work of their letters and simple words, and then move on to simple sentences. First grade, they should be able to write complete sentences, but you're still looking for penmanship. Give them something to look at and to copy from. It's called copy work. You can pick out poetry books, their favorite storybooks. They have to copy it out very neatly in proper writing. Second grade, I start to introduce the concepts of cursive. They're not required to write all of it in cursive. It just depends on the child's particular ability and their motor development. Third grade, we definitely start learning how to write in cursive. It is still copy work so that they have something to look at. Now, in that case, you're going to have to take a printed word because most books are not printed in cursive. You're going to have to take that and write the sentence out for them that you want them to do at the beginning. Then later on, they're going to have to learn how to do their copy work, but they are going to copy the cursive writing instead of copying your handwriting first, if that makes sense. Okay, we're going to move on to spelling. Spelling is one of those subjects. I've been through a lot of different textbooks trying to figure out a really great way to teach it. Spelling words for me, they just stick in my head. So it's difficult for me to figure out how to teach somebody who doesn't have that same capability. I have had phonics pathways suggested to me before. I have tried to use it. I wish that it had a teacher's guide with it because I didn't enjoy this book. Other people have raved about it. They loved it. Their children loved it. Go ahead and check it out because it might be just the perfect book for you. For us, it didn't work so great. We have also used Bob Jones. This is the teacher's book I picked up 2nd, 6th, and 4th grade at a yard sale. You can get workbooks for these. Buy the workbook, make photocopies if you have more than one kid. These are really great. These are Christian textbooks. So if you are a secular teacher or want to keep things separate, I wouldn't go for this one. It's a good textbook, but it does have a lot of religious references in it. This year, we are going to be trying spellography. I can't give any advice other than finding the teacher's resource book will cost you between $70 to $150. I don't own it, so I hope that we can get through this pretty well. My aunt has recommended Spelling Power. A lot of people have recommended Spelling Power. If you have a recommendation for spelling, please throw it out there for the rest of us, and we will enjoy hearing about it. All right, don't forget, you can find online spelling lists, and you can do homophones lists and all of that sort of thing. Okay, I'm going to move on to science books now. For the beginning grades, I just went online and I found textbooks that were not first edition. The littlest kids get a really good foundation. This covers everything that you remember from school. Physics, a little biology, a little earth science. You just work through it. Sometimes you can find workbooks that go for this. Sometimes these companies will put their workbooks online for free. McGraw-Hill is really great about that. You can find spelling, you can find grammar, you can find some of their science textbooks online PDF for free. You can Google it, and a lot of times it'll come up, and then you just print it off and you have it right there. So if you think you're only going to be homeschooling for a single year, do this. Get you a textbook, $2 online, and then you have a really good textbook to go with. If you want to do multiple years, or if you don't want to get one giant textbook but you still want multiple subjects, here's my suggestion for you. A science encyclopedia to back up your information. Kingfisher, it's really great. Lots of good pictures and good information. Okay, so I just went and picked up a whole handful of books here. So, you can find really great stuff like this. Pop-up books, anatomy pop-up books, and don't think that these are just for little kids because these pictures are super cool. Some of these have little flappy things that you can use. These are really great references for big kids too. So, pop-up facts, human body. Or you can find something that's a little bit smaller, the human body inside out, that has overlays of the different levels of the human body. Also a fantastic reference. You can also find Gray's Anatomy coloring book. I have one of those, but I don't have it in here. We haven't quite used it yet. So I want to introduce you to this book series, Janice Van Cleve. She covers everything, the human body, engineering, physics, astronomy, earth science, and chemistry. These are experiment books, and they are fantastic. They give a little mini lesson. You do the experiment, and that is a really great way to get into science. And the lessons, they're really not all that long. Okay, here's engineering. Here's physics. We had a lot of fun with the engineering book last year. I would recommend going with these Reader's Digest books. They have fantastic information inside, nice big pictures you can see. I like to pair these with the Janice Van Cleve books. So I will take this and pair it up with biology books or her other experiment books. For example, we did How the Universe Works and paired it with her astronomy book. And you have a lesson. These books took us a semester to finish together. And then we moved on to another subject, the Earth and How It Works, paired up with earth science. I think you get the idea, right? This year we're tackling chemistry with her chemistry book. I'm excited about that. Okay, so that's my recommendation for science. You can also find a lot of online reference material, online games that you can play for biology or whatever like that. I need to get a lap book page. Lap books are really fantastic. I don't have one here with me. Basically, it's a piece of paper and you do little cutouts of the things that you've studied and you glue it on, and then it has like little flip book pages and things and pictures and little writing that the children have done. And you just put it in your book, and it's the reference to show what you studied. You can have them write up a little report page, fill out something like this. I have some of those just to keep a record of what you studied. I'll see if I can find you a flip book. We're reaching some high time on this. Okay, so history. For American history, kindergarten through second grade, you're just basically going to cover stories of early American life. You can follow holidays. You can introduce American history by following the holidays as they come up, or you can pick up books. There's some really great ones. Some just little American history textbooks. This is an Abeka book, which is a Christian-based book, I think. It says second grade. I use it for first grade. It's very basic. Very good book, though. It's got some nice pictures in it. Covers a little bit of early American history. Some concepts like freedom and what our flag stands for and all of that kind of thing. You can also do American history by studying the presidents. This is a cute little book. I just picked it up at a yard sale. You can find all kinds of resources like this. Make up a little page similar to the author page I showed you a few minutes ago, only you're going to put a picture of the president and some pertinent information about their life and their term in office. And that shows that you have studied the presidents and the kids have a good idea about their own history. Now, when they reach third and fourth grade, I like to use this book, the Complete Book of United States History. I know that it says grades 3 through 5. We don't use this in 5th grade. We're typically done with it by the end of 4th grade. And you can see I bought mine secondhand. We've really gone through it. It's seen some good days. It has a lot of really great information, and their pictures are a little more in-depth than what a little kid's book would be. So I like to pair this with our world history and use this to fill in during the world history studies. So this isn't going to be studied separate. That's why I don't really get into a good hefty book until 3rd grade, because right about 3rd grade for us is when we really start getting into American history. So this is not a separate textbook. The lessons from this book get put in with American history or in with world history at the appropriate time in the timeline when we're studying it. So for world history, this is my favorite series. I really, really love this. And I'm getting ready to start my 3rd reading of these books, and I can tell you that they are just fantastic. Story of the World. There's that name again, Susan Wise. These are really, really great. A lot of homeschool families don't start these until middle school, maybe even high school. You can use these for older kids. I prefer to start this very first one, Ancient History, in 1st grade. And there's 4 of these in the series. So 1st grade, 2nd grade, 3rd grade, and 4th grade. Now, your older high school, middle school, high school kids can go through this. You can see it's not any bigger than just a novel. You can do 1 chapter a day with your older kids, and there's only about 42 lessons in here. You can go through a lot of these books in the year, depending on how quickly your child reads. Now, I have pages to do lap book pages for each section in these books. There was a lady that put it together for her homeschool kids, and she offered it online for free. And so I printed them all out. I kept the website that she had them posted at. So I have those. If you're interested, I can send you the link. You can go to her site and print it out for yourself. So these books, they read like a storybook, and it is just really a really great foundation. It doesn't go very in depth into the societal changes that came with history. You won't get that until the kids get older, but this is a really great historical basis to start with. And somewhere in this book, the 3rd one, you're going to throw in your American history lessons to supplement with it. For the older kids, when you're done with these, 5th grade, instead of doing an individual lap book page for each lesson that we've studied, we start something that is called the Book of Centuries. I'll show you the inside of this in just a minute. We pick up a series that's called the Human Odyssey. There are 3 of these that are going to be spread out over 4 years. You can see this is a pretty good sized textbook. It has a lot of classical art in it. It has some folk stories, but it reads more like an actual textbook. So I just break it down according to time or reading ability of the child to do so many segments of it during the day. It is a really, really great series. After this, I'd have to look up. I have another series that we're going to be doing, but I don't remember what it's called right offhand. So if you need that, I will be glad to look it up for you and tell you about it. So when we move into the bigger kid textbook and we start the Book of Centuries, this is how it works. So each section in this notebook will have a time frame. Ancient history is spread out a little bit more because we don't know as much information about ancient history as we do about modern history. So we're going to cover about, 1,500 year frame in here. And every time that you read about something, you put a little bit of information about it in the book. This is a good example of what a lap book page looks like. Little flippy pages with a picture, with writing that the children have done. You have maps and all sorts of things. This book will help to line up different sections of history that you're reading about and keep everything within the same time frame. So, for example, we have the Babylonian Empire in the same time frame as the Shang Dynasty, the Code of Hammurabi. We have Abraham and Lot. We have Jacob and Esau. Mohenjo-Daro in India. All of this stuff was happening at the same time, and this really solidifies different concepts that were going on in the world at the same time. So it has been a really great way for me to be able to understand history, and for the children to understand that history didn't happen just in chunks according to what geographical region we're studying. All of this stuff was happening at the exact same time throughout history. Hindu invasion, the Torah was recorded, the Minoans were making their civilization. And then as you go through the book, you're going to find that it does go down to century time. So there's only about 100 years. Once you hit more recent history, there will only be about 100 years for each section. Okay? That's why it's called the Book of Centuries. So each century gets its own little section in here. Darius the Great at the same time as Confucius, at the same time as Buddha in India. I love this book. This is going to be your history record from at least the middle school, probably all the way up through high school, if that's when you start it. This is a really great record to show what you've studied and how history ties in with itself. If you have the capabilities, I would also recommend picking up the Amazing Bible Timeline. Even if you're not a religious person, this is put together by century and lines up for you everything that happened in history in a certain time frame. So yes, there are religious references on there, but it covers all of world history and keeps it lined up so that it's easy to make sure that you're not missing something or that you're not misplacing something in history. So that is my recommendation. We're at about 30 minutes for this video, and I think that's about long enough. If you have any other questions for me about these core subjects, I will be glad to break them down a little bit more. Don't forget that you can also throw in some state studies for your American history. You just do a little map, do the waterways, do the capital, important people, the flags, the birds, the trees, everything that's associated with that state. If you can go visit it, that's even better, but these days it's kind of hard to go and travel. Or you can do online YouTube videos to explore a state. There are some really fantastic videos for science. For history, you can find those. For literature, we like to watch the Lego animation videos that other kids have put together. Science, you can do Planet Earth. Wildcrats, as odd as it sounds, my children have learned so much from watching Wildcrats. They'll come up and tell me about some animal I've never even heard of before. Check out Moving Art. Moving Art is really fantastic for introducing the African savanna or the tundras or the icy regions up on the glaciers. There's a lot of information out there. The most important thing that you can do is when they do something or they study something or they watch something that's educational, write it down. Don't think you're going to be able to remember, but you would be surprised at how much learning goes on around you, even if it is not textbook based. Learning is not always textbooks at the table. So that's my advice for you. And if you have any other questions, please send them to me or put them in the comments. If I can't answer it, I'm sure that I have family and friends who can give their advice as well, and we would be glad to have a discussion with you about your homeschooling. So good luck with this year, and just remember, you can do it. You can do it. It's not unmanageable.